Let's talk a little about why high-functioning individuals also experience chronic fatigue. There is a kind of fatigue that does not look conventionally like fatigue. You are functioning, you are performing, you are getting things done, and yet the system is not recovering to 100%. In high-functioning individuals, fatigue is rarely a lack of energy. It is a challenge of allocation of sustained load. To understand this, you have to look at how the system manages energy. The brain alone consumes disproportionate share of energy and metabolic resources that we have. When you add to it continuous decision making, small, big, life changing, irrelevant, but all the decision making, persistent cognitive engagement, constant attention switching from one app to the other, one task to the other, the prefrontal cortex remains active for long periods of time without having time for any meaningful recovery. At the same time, the body is running a lot of background processes. Low grade signaling is one of them, emotional processing is a huge one, and there are also unresolved cognitive loops that are continuously consuming energy. So the energy is being used before visible work even begins. Now, if you look at the biomarkers, you will notice patterns like there is flattened diurnal cortisol core, there is reduced HRV, there is elevated HSCRP, and a lot of other inflammatory markers. These are all early signs of mitochondrial inefficiency. These are not extreme abnormalities, so typically they don't show up in your blood report. They are subtle shifts, but they are telling you something remarkably important. They are telling you that the system is not exiting the curve of demand. That means there is no moment where the system is resting and breathing. It is continuously serving the demand for energy. It is staying locked in that state. So, no, you are not low on energy, but you are operating in a system that has not fully returned to its baseline of rest and relax. High functioning individuals adapt to this. They continue, through effort, through structure, through discipline, through coaching of walking through walls and God knows what not. And they are often supported by adrenaline and short bursts of cortisol, your stress hormone, and cognitive override to think through the issues. But this is not recovery, it is compensation. And over time, compensation changes the system. So the pattern becomes predictable. You can work, but you don't fully recover. You can sleep, but sleep does not feel restorative. You can rest, but the system does not downshift and relax completely. Recovery is a psychological transition from sympathetic to parasympathetic dominance, from cortisol driven activity to repair state, from inflammatory signaling to resolution. If that transition is incomplete, you remain partially activated. And over time, some degree of fatigue becomes your baseline. So it's not episodic when you're overworked. It's not situational because you're dealing with some stress or a deadline. It becomes structural. It becomes a part of life. It becomes who you are. So the real question is not that why am I tired? The real question is what in my system is preventing full recovery cycles from completing. Look at the signals. Look at your HRV trends. Look at your cortisol rhythms. Look at your inflammatory markers. Look at subjective recovery after sleep. Because fatigue is not random. It is actually measurable, by the way. It's super measurable now. The system is sustaining output but not completing recovery. If this resonates with you, please, please, please don't push harder. Start observing. Because what you measure, you can begin to understand. And what you understand, you can begin to change. And in that change may lie your access, not just to performance, but sustained performance, sustained health, and over long term, healthy longevity.